Good evening, friends. This is my podcast video for Wednesday, October 4th. Well, Dianne Feinstein is not even buried yet, and Gavin Newsom has appointed her successor, and she's been sworn in. What's going on? Gavin Newsom announced that he was choosing a senator to replace and fill the vacancy of Dianne Feinstein. He promised he would appoint a black woman, and that put him in a little bit of a jam because there is a black woman running for the Senate by the name of Barbara Lee, and she wanted to have that seat, but Gavin Newsom said, no, I'm not going to give it to anybody who's running because this is a caretaker position. I don't want to take away from anybody. Now, I'll tell you that most likely he found himself cornered after talking about a black woman, and he's most likely favoring Adam Schiff because having, if Laphonza Butler runs, Laphonza, excuse me. I used to know a car company came Laphonza. If Laphonza Butler does decide to run, then she's going to split the black vote, and Adam Schiff, he's got a big campaign chest. Well, anyway, I want to go over, there's some legal issues with this, which are kind of thorny and sticky, and I believe that Mr. Newsom and Miss Butler, they weren't thinking very well. The Constitution says that a senator has to be an inhabitant of the state when that person is elected. Here's when the Constitutional Convention was deciding the language of the Constitution, they rejected the use of the word resident to as far as it concerned a senator of the state. They said inhabitant. And the reason they did, according to the notes of the convention, is because there might be somebody who was in a state and he was living there, but he was traveling to other states for business or for personal reasons. Well, that's the federal level. The 17th Amendment provided for a revised method of choosing senators. Originally, senators were elected directly by the state legislature. They went to a popular vote. The 17th Amendment says when there's a vacancy, then it will be filled until the next election by someone appointed according to the rules of the state. Now, the California Elections Code says in the case of a vacancy in the U.S. Senate seat, the governor has the power to appoint somebody who is an elector and is at least 18 years old to serve until a special election is held. Section 321 of the Elections Code says an elector is a person who is 18 years of age or older and is resident of an election precinct on or before the date of an election. It turns out, according to the LA Recorder and Registrar, that on Sunday, October 1, Laphonza Butler went online and changed her voter registration to California. Changed? What do you mean? Well, if you look at her bio, which was altered just after she was, the announcement was made that she's going to be appointed, it shows that she's a resident of Maryland and registered to vote there. She lives there. She has a house there. So, is registering the vote enough to become a resident? Well, I don't think so. See, a resident is someone who lives in the state, and that's their habitual place where they live. Resident means you reside there. And the determination of whether someone's a resident under the law, well, it depends on resident for what purpose, but generally it's based on their intent, where they're going to live, where they work, where their children are enrolled in school, what kind of civic clubs they're enrolled in, the center of their life. Ms. Butler left California in September 2021 in order to take the leadership position in Emily's List. an activist group, pro-abortion activist group that's in headquarters in Washington, D.C. So although she reportedly still owns a house in Los Angeles County, she is living in, has been living in Silver Springs, Maryland. We can look for guidance to the California tax rules. Usually people don't want to be a resident of California for tax rules because they have to pay more taxes. And I would bet that in 2022, Laphonza Butler didn't file taxes as a California resident. Okay? And there's a regulation there, and I can look here for the site. It's regulation Title 18, California Code of Regulations, section 17014. Well, it says that a resident means physical presence in the state. If you are living in California, then you are a resident of the state of California. The only exception would be that if you're just there for temporary or transitory purposes. Now, and the rule goes on to say that if you take a job, that's not temporary or transitory. That's one basis for being a resident of California or being subject to its taxes. The other one is if your domicile is in California. And domicile under this rule means where you really intend to stay. Okay? Now, and it also says quite clearly that if someone makes their domicile in another state and is living there, in order to change domicile back to California, they must physically come to the state. That's very interesting because on October 2nd, the left-wing magazine Slate published an article where it says, you know, just registering to vote, that's a little, you know, that's on shaky ground. She really ought to come to California and be here physically before she's sworn in. Well, of course, as oftentimes happen, people in power, they don't really care about following the rules. And she was sworn in yesterday without coming back to California. And you can bet that her child is going to continue to be enrolled in school in Maryland. Well, there you have it. However, you know, I was thinking about filing a lawsuit to challenge this in California State Court. Here's the problem is the Constitution says that the House of Congress, in which a senator of Congress is in, has the sole ability to decide whether someone's qualified to sit in that House, in that legislative body. So you can't sue about it. The only people that we're going to care are senators. The Democrats have a majority in the Senate. They want to keep that majority. They don't want to have the seat open, so for sure they're going to say everything's fine. In other news of note, Kevin McCarthy was ousted as Speaker. Apparently, the Democrats combined with 8 Republicans to remove him, and they were expecting that McCarthy was going to come back to them and say, whoa, I really want to be Speaker, I'll give you some concessions to your party, maybe put you on some committees and agree to certain things if you support me and elect me as Speaker. And I think they were surprised because McCarthy said, you know what, I'm not going to stand for the office. Let someone else do it. And right now, Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise have thrown their hats in the ring. And if one of those is is elected as Speaker of the House, that's going to be great because they're going to hopefully follow the conservative principles that the American people want. And apparently what happened with this vote, the continuing resolution, Kevin McCarthy broke his word to his caucus. And that the caucus didn't support. So it's a little bit chaotic, but hopefully it'll all be solved and it'll all be okay in the end. And we'll get these 12 spending bills passed. Remember, we got to cut this federal spending. It's up 45% from 2019. There's no reason for it. We're not in a war. We're not in the COVID crisis again. We have to cut this deficit, which was $2.2 trillion for the fiscal year ended September 30th. That's about 1/3 of the total amount of the budget that was spent. 1/3 of all the money we spent was borrowed, and that's what's causing the inflation we have that is continuing with us. Every time you go to the grocery store, the gas station, any other thing you buy, it's hitting you right there. And why do we have inflation? Because we have had deficits. Why do we have deficits? Because the Democratic Party and some Republicans have been voting and spending more money than we have. Well, hope you learned something from this video, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.